Corruption by P.K. Armstrong. Chapter 7. Angel had enough. She was going home. She tried to control her thoughts and not think about Roland, but she couldn't help it. She was disappointed and a little hurt. She wasn't stupid enough to think when Roland asked her to stay in the room alone that he was going to embrace her and tell her how much he missed her while he was gone, but she had not expected to be accused of, frankly, she didn't know exactly what he was accusing her of doing. Even though his son was in a serious situation, Clark Kincaid had, in a subtle way, expressed interest in Angel as a woman. He put his hand on her shoulder or touched her arm unnecessarily. Working in law enforcement, she had known cops that used the close proximity of their work to accidentally put their hands on her. In her career, it only happened a couple of times because she usually dealt with it rather brutally. But she also learned that some men were just touchy-feely. They touched their male coworkers just as much as their female coworkers, usually a grasp of the shoulder or a tap on the arm. Truthfully, she was paying so much attention to the case and getting the kids cleared, she hadn't dealt with Clark Kincaid the way she should have. But he had accepted her brush-offs, usually with a grin, so it hadn't seemed important. At least, she didn't think so until she saw the look Roland gave Clark Kincaid. A woman might be flattered that the man she had seen was jealous. She probably would have been. But Roland gave her a look that made her feel as if she were guilty of something. What did he think? Clark Kincaid was a client, nothing more, and she resented the implication that she would have used Roland's time away to cozy up to some sleazy lawyer. She was working herself up again when her phone rang. Hello? Angel. Hey, Dad. What's wrong? What makes you think something is wrong? I heard it in your voice. Dad, I literally only said 2 words. Is Roland back? Dad? Her father chuckled and then thankfully changed the subject. Hey, we need to talk. Come for lunch. Okay, I'll be there in 15. Angel immediately acquiesced, despite the work she wanted to do for Clark Kincaid, because her father very rarely called and asked to see her. If he had anything to discuss, he would always tell her mom, "She'll get here eventually." A response which always aggravated her mother, who never had any compunction calling Angel and telling her she was neglecting her parents. Angel smiled. She not only loved her parents, but she actually liked spending time with them. The smile turned to a frown. Something was worrying her father. Angel exited Magnolia Parkway and made her way through town to her parents' home. After being injured in a hostage standoff, her father, Jerry Dale, retired and often spent his time in his workshop working on small projects. Her mom was a psychologist, active in therapy and behavior modification. She was often around to help Angel with her cases, just as she was when her father worked for the police department. Angel pulled up in front of the house. They had turned her bedroom into a guest room years ago, but she grew up in this house and it still felt like coming home. She had always had an excellent rapport with both, but she was and always would be Daddy's girl. He never commanded, demanded, or insisted she come, even if he needed her for something, so Angel knew something was up. She was even more alarmed when both of her parents were on the porch waiting for her when she pulled up. She got out of her car, locked it, and strolled up the sidewalk as both of her parents came down the stairs and greeted her with a hug. Are you guys going to tell me what's going on? You are kind of freaking me out a bit, Angel asked worriedly as she hugged first her mom and then her dad. Yes, yes, really, it's not that bad. You know how your mom exaggerates, Jerry Dale said on a laugh. Her mom hit her dad playfully on the arm, grabbed her hand, and directed her up the stairs into the house. The two-story craftsman-style home was built in the 1950s. Her parents had actually done a lot of work to restore the original features. The bricks that had deteriorated on the pathway leading up to the porch were replaced and matched with the brick foundation, and they had painted the house beige with a red trim to match the red brick. The yard was quite large, and Angel remembered playing in the trees, one of which still held the swing her father built for her. Violet always headed straight to the same swing when she spent time with her at her parents' house. The neighborhood had not changed much, and most knew each other, the parents, kids, and grandchildren. Angel entered the entryway and dropped her bag on the floor by the door, missing the look that passed between her mother and father. She dropped her backpack in the same place when she was growing up. They made their way through to the kitchen, where Francine handed Angel a pitcher of homemade lemonade to take out to the porch where she had set the table for lunch. The back porch ran the length of the house in the traditional style and was closed in, originally with a screen. An unusual 2.5-foot ledge stuck out from the porch, which at first her mom used to place potted plants and flowers. But several years ago, her father had fought with the Planning Commission for Old Town Fillmore to extend the walls to meet the ledge and enclose the porch with large glass windows that could be opened. The result was breezy outdoor seating with a dining area that could seat six comfortably. At the moment, the large windows allowed the midday light to stream in, but the room was cool because the windows were open and the ceiling fans that her father had also installed were switched on high. The family sat down to, Angel noted, her favorite meal of macaroni baked with Gruyere, cheddar, and jack cheeses, and topped with fresh breadcrumbs with rotisserie chicken and salad. Angel noted her mother was truly going overboard considering macaroni was Angel's favorite. To confirm her suspicions, after she had taken a few bites, she asked, "What's for dessert?" "Cheesecake," her mother answered. Angel winked at her father and they both laughed, and her mother looked at them with exasperation. "Can I just have the moment, please?" "It's delicious, Francie," her father said, using his nickname for his wife. Angel smiled lovingly at them both, and then turned to look at her mother. "It really is, Mom. I'm glad you guys invited me over. I needed a break after my morning at the police station." "A new case? Didn't you just finish that horrific divorce case? You should have taken a break," her mother warned. "I know." Her mother knew just how horrific it was because Angel had consulted with her even before she took the case. Angel made her own decisions about cases, and sometimes, if she needed to talk things out, she would talk with her mom. A successful psychiatrist, her passion was behavior modification and therapy, but no one could profile like her mom. The Corcoran divorce was strange. Corcoran's attorney had approached Angel and asked her to prove her client was not an abuser. Accusations were made, and social services and the police became involved. Officials did find proof of abuse, most notably was a trunk with a lock on it that the little girls, aged 6 and 8, called the naughty box. Neither child, however, would tell which parent put them in the box. Angel always needed to meet who she would be working for, and Jeff Corcoran was a powerful type A personality, ruthless at business. It was when she met Allison Corcoran that Angel's mind started buzzing. Allison Corcoran was small in stature, seemingly quiet and submissive. She wouldn't even look at Angel in the eye when she spoke with her. But Angel had a habit of showing up to meetings early and sat in her car and watched as Allison Corcoran walked towards the court building and saw her face twist in anger and outright disgust when a homeless man approached her. Allison had pushed his cup of change away so violently the man fell backwards. Angel asked her mother if a woman who was being abused could react to a homeless man in such a way. After speaking to her mom, Angel called Jeff Corcoran's attorney and instantly took the case. It took some digging and she had to go back far, farther than the police usually went, but she finally found what she was looking for. Her financials only went back 10 years. Allison Corcoran was in actuality Aleska Koshevin, who immigrated illegally 12 years ago and disappeared after an attempt to prosecute her for helping sex traffickers trap girls from Russia. It appeared she was not only abusing her husband and children, but she was capable of much more. After finally getting the girls to trust them, the attorney and Angel listened to hours of tales of abuse they had experienced. Aleska Koshevin was arrested and extradited to face the original sex trafficking charges. Thus, she was successfully plucked right out of her husband's and their daughters' lives. The case concluded the best way possible, but cases involving children wore Angel out on every level. Her mother was right. She did need a break from abused children. She took another bite, closing her eyes and savoring the Gruyere. Her father chuckled and she opened her eyes. I'm worried what we need to talk about will disturb your meal, he smiled. Angel shrugged. I'm sure I'll be fine, and purposefully took a bite. It's about Violet, her dad started. Violet? Angel wasn't expecting that. What about Violet? We went to Sam Peterson's barbecue last night. Sam Peterson was one of her dad's partners from patrol. They were paired together when her father was injured, and Sam Peterson was the one who came to see her and her mother to break the news. Their families were close and visited each other often. Angel stamped down the emotion. You learned something about Violet from Sam Peterson? No, Gwen Johnson. I'm not familiar with her, Angel admitted. Not surprising. She's state police, her father backtracked. It was one of Sam's law enforcement barbecues. There were members of active duty military personnel, state police, sheriff's office, and police department. I think there may have been a prosecutor or two there as well. Angel looked at her mom. Did you go? Angel's mom loved her dad and Angel, but she was not a big fan of law enforcement or prosecutors. Francine Dale was often called in too late, as she described it, and often tried to advocate for more of a bridge between community psychologists and law enforcement. She attended events with her father, but usually it was because she loved her father and not because she enjoyed them. Her dad told her that her mom spent time at the events driving his colleagues crazy with her psychology tricks. Yes, I went. Her mom rolled her eyes and Angel laughed. So what did this Gwen Johnson have to say? Angel prompted. She realized she had stopped eating and knew her mother would insist they stop the conversation until lunch was over, so she deliberately took another bite of food. Her dad was an ex-cop and knew better than to just recite the words, so he gave her some background to the story. I really don't know her. She was talking to your old captain, Davis, and he motioned me over, probably just to see how you are doing. He paused and reintroduced me to Gwen Johnson, but then got called away. We were talking about things in general, the law enforcement climate, retirement, and a big corruption case from a few counties over that was initiated by the state police. Angel thought while she gnawed her chicken leg. Odd she would share that information with a civilian, she said more to herself than her father. Hmm, her father said noncommittally. She seemed like she was bragging. I mean, it was her task force. Maybe bragging isn't the right word. You know how cops get together and see who has the most interesting story to tell. It was more like that. So where does Violet fit in? She started telling me about this cop who crossed the line. He even went so far as to get a confidential informant pregnant. How did you make the connection? She said that they had a witness to the relationship, but after the confidential informant found out they knew about her and the cop, her roommate took off with the baby. And that's the only reason they couldn't fire the guy. And you think that baby was Violet? Her father put his glass down and looked at her thoughtfully. It's possible, isn't it? Angel had finished her food and lemonade and sat thinking. I don't suppose she gave you the name? No, you could tell she had some wine, but not enough to be that indiscreet. Jerry Dale paused. I could make some calls. Angel looked out into the backyard and thought how her parents really had created an idyllic setting. They had nursed a lot of the original trees back to health and planted complementary trees and used boulders to create rock outcroppings to outline a new water feature. She loved bringing Violet here and watching her play. She was such an outdoorsy little girl. She wasn't afraid of bees or spiders and learned which flowers Francine said she could pick. When she jumped from rock to rock, she looked like a wood fairy from a children's story. Angelica? Her mother said softly, and Angel turned, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. Mom, I can't, Angel responded just as softly, and her dad reached over and placed a hand on hers. Her mom smiled a sad smile. But you do know questions have to be asked. Of course, I know that, but you don't understand how it was at first for Violet. She's just now healing, and she's happy and becoming a normal little girl. I don't want to dredge up stuff and make her scared and miserable again. Angel resisted. Jerry Dell interjected. Angel, come on, hun. Your mother, of all people, knows how it was in the beginning for Violet. Not only has she worked with traumatized children, but she worked with Violet. She's not coming from a place of ignorance when she suggests what needs to be done. Angel reached over and grasped her mother's forearm tightly. I'm sorry, Mom. Yes, I know you have been there for Violet, she sighed heavily. I don't know why I even said that. Her mom put her other hand on top of Angel's and patted it lovingly. I know you didn't mean it, my love, she continued. I think we all would like to keep Violet in a bubble for a little while longer. She has truly blossomed and is very happy. I know if you go down the rabbit hole, so to speak, with this investigation, you may find things you don't like, some of which may upset and frighten Violet. But you have to remember, she was frightened before with Brandy. Do you remember how lonely she was? Yes, she told me once that she never felt like Brandy wanted her. Angel, what makes us balanced in relationships as adults is the type of foundations laid for us as children. But the brain has an amazing ability to recover from trauma, even if it occurs in older children and adults. We work to rebuild the broken systems, and that includes replacing the missing relationships. And that is why, no matter what you discover, Violet will be okay because she has us. Angel's tears fell as her mom caressed her hand and her dad took up the other in his. Her heart felt full because she knew her parents could feel her uncertainty and pain almost as acutely as she. She decided and looked at her dad. Let me know what you find out. Of course, he said on a smile. And then, maybe you should talk to Roland about it. Angel looked down at her empty plate. You said there was cheesecake? This time she didn't miss the look that passed between her parents. She started to get up, but her mother stayed her with, no, dear, you stay. I will get it. Angel avoided looking at her father, and eventually her mother returned with a small tray with 3 plates of plain cheesecake and a bowl of fresh berries. Would you like some wine? No, I've got work later. And Angel tucked in, hoping her father had lost his thought. He had not. Something going on between you and Roland? Now, love, don't be pushy. You know that some relationships can't withstand an extended period of time away, Angel's mom consoled. It's not that. It's the case I was working on this morning. Angel's parents didn't look at her. They just sat there and ate their cheesecake with maddening serenity. As a teenager, she hated the way they just sat and calmly waited for her to spill her guts. It still worked. She told them everything that happened, including Roland finding out earlier that morning that she had withheld information. Her father let out a slow whistle. Wow, I know. Something told me when I hadn't heard from him that the body he got called out on was probably the same one my client was reporting to me. But I guess I was kind of hoping it wasn't. Her mom, the queen of obvious statements, pointed out, yeah, maybe you should have gone with your first inclination and just called and asked him. Mom, Angel sucked her teeth. I don't want to go running to Roland every time I have a case. I am a good investigator all on my own. Angel, I'm not saying, Francine started, but Jerry interrupted them both with a raise of his hand. All right, girls. Angel, you are a good investigator. You were a great detective for the police department, and you have one of the best reputations in this area as a private investigator. That is not in dispute here. But Angel knew she was probably not going to like what was going to be said next. Jerry Dale turned and looked at his wife, an eyebrow raised in question, and Francine smiled, patted his arm, and finished her husband's thought. If you had known the case was his, would you have told him? Angel avoided answering. Does it matter? Angel asked, a little surprised. Not to us, no, her mother responded firmly. But I can guess that after Roland sorts through his schoolboy jealousy, which, by the way, men never grow out of, he is probably going to discover that not knowing the answer to that question is the main source of his discomfort.